Good morning. Gorgeous day, isn't it? I bet we all wish we were running the half marathon, don't we? So we just bow our heads. Lord, we thank you for this glorious day. Put peace in our hearts. Make us glad to be here today. And may the words I speak be words from you. Amen. I was really blessed this week because I had two lots of lectionary readings to choose from. Last time I preached, I was naughty because I didn't choose the lectionary reading for that week, did I? But I had two to choose from. And I chose. So, and I mean, normally when I'm and I know I've got to preach, I'll look at the lectionary readings, I'll read them through and see what they say to me. So that's why I chose the readings for today, because I felt that actually spoke to me about, at the moment, we all need to trust and have faith in God, don't we? You know, even if we're not personally going through difficult times, we know some people who are, and then, you know, we hear all the news from Europe and everything that we hear, bombarded by news. We've only listened to the news for 10 minutes this morning, and if you let it, it drags you down, doesn't it? So today I want to talk about God's calling. He called Abraham, he calls you, and trust to go with that calling, and faith. And our response, because God achieves nothing in us and with us if we don't accept his calling. So the first one I'm going to refer to is obviously Abraham, who was in the Romans reading. And I've just got his calling from Genesis. Just listen to this. Just imagine if God was asking you to do this. It's in chapter 12 of Genesis. The Lord has said to Abraham, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all people on earth will be blessed through you. Wow. What a command, because it was a command. It wasn't, when you've got time, will you just pack your bags and your donkeys and your cows and your sheep, and will you just walk this way with me? It was a command. Stop what you're doing, leave everything behind, and go. And it's a big thing, isn't it? But your journey starts with faith. We haven't had a big call, at least I haven't had a big call, and I don't know if anybody else has had, the sort of calling that Abraham had. But God calls you every day to do something. He calls you to maybe step out of your comfort zone. He calls you to check on a friend, or he calls you to show an act of kindness, as Sue mentioned today. But God calls you every day. And your faith for that day and for your continuing journey starts with that calling. Do you accept the calling, or do you say, not today, Lord, I'll come tomorrow? Because your journey is your journey. You're individuals, you're unique. God calls you in a unique way. But that calling, go through your country and your kindred and your father's house, and I'll give you that. That command changed everything. He became the father of the whole world. And he didn't consult anybody about his decision, he just went. The answer to leave his past and trust God for his future was very, very dramatic. And he didn't just trust him at that moment in his life. They moved to several parts of on the journey to Canaan, and they met troubles and difficulties. God had promised him that he would be a father of nations, and how could he be a father of nations? Because he hadn't got a son to start that off with. So in his mind, he must have thought, it dies with me. What God had promised, he'd said, I will make you a father of nations. And so he trusted. He trusted and he believed and he sent where God sent him and did the things that God asked him to do. And God rewarded him with a son. And he did become the father of all nations. And it's hard though sometimes, isn't it? It's hard to hold on and have faith and know where God's calling is when things are not so good. You know, when you've got ill health, or you've got money worries, or you're worried about your family, or you're worried about your job. It's hard. But sometimes the calling from God is stronger in the hardest times than it is when everything's hunky-dory. I mean, if I look back along my journey of faith from St. Paul's, and I think about the people who have gone on to do other things, I know of at least 2 people who did accept what I call the Abraham calling. They did give up their life. They gave up good jobs. They gave up company cars. They gave up trappings of wealth. And they started to train to be ministers. You know, that was a huge thing. It does happen. It still happens. But we are called in the ordinary way because God chooses ordinary people. You know, he doesn't choose the most educated. He doesn't choose the prettiest or the slimmest. Good job, isn't it, really? He doesn't choose, you know, you don't have to be fluent in speech. You just have to be there for God and open your hands and open your heart and say, I will follow you. I mean, I think about the next person who spoke to me during this, when I was reading the readings for this week, was the tax collector, Matthew. Now, we know nothing about him really, except he was a tax collector. And he was one of the most despised men because he robbed his own, you know, because he was a Jew, he robbed his own. So he politically worked for the Romans. He was hated, he was despised. And yet Jesus says, come. And he came. He obeyed the command. Now, we don't know what happened to him afterwards. We don't hear anything else about him. But he has something to teach us. Maybe God had prepared him. Maybe God had been in his heart calling him gently, you know, that little voice on your shoulder. We don't know. But God called him and he went. And again, like God calling Abraham, it wasn't a request, you know, just come today, come tomorrow, come on your life. It was now. I want you now. And the choice for him was controversial. And the fact that Jesus later ate with him and his friends was even more controversial for Jesus. But he kept on going. Jesus showed us that with that calling, that he will call any of us. He calls any of us. So don't hang back. Choosing to follow God isn't easy. We all know that. And it causes lots of heartache and soul searching. And it can cause problems in families. I know when I started to come to St. Paul's years ago, my mum thought it was awful because of the way I was leaving the family on Sunday morning or Sunday night coming to church. Harry's dad thought I was joining a sect because we went on a parish holiday and I took the girls. He was, do you know what I mean? If you're doing it properly, you get a lot of backlash, don't you? But laying down that is worth it, isn't it? Because if you follow God's calling, what blessings do you get? You get the support, physically support of your family here at St. Paul's. You get the word of God to guide you day by day. You get a rock to build your life on, a rock, something to guide you with your decisions. You get so much from accepting God's calling. So you can't do any other, can you? Well, at least I don't think you can. Trusting God is the biggest part of our lives, apart from faith. Because when we trust God, we open up our lives, and the possibilities of our lives for God are endless. I mean, the leader of the synagogue, again, he trusted God, didn't he? He knew his daughter had died, but he knew the one person who could help him was Jesus. So he went against his position in the synagogue. He went against the law. He went against somebody. He went towards somebody who the rest of his faith discriminated against. And because he was a threat. But the synagogue, this man loved his daughter so much, and he knew the only person that could help him was God. So he trusted him. And you know what happened? Are we having things in our life at the moment that we need to trust God for? You know, all the things that we could perhaps lay at God's feet and pray about and ask somebody to pray with us about. You know, because we all have problems from time to time. Because are we going to be like the synagogue leader and trust God that he will find us the answer? I mean, after the healing story, we hear nothing at all about the man, do we? He just fades into oblivion. But we don't know, did he spread the word of Jesus amongst the people of his synagogue? We don't know. But we would assume so. If you'd have had a miracle like that, wouldn't you have said, you know, you wouldn't keep it to yourself, would you? No, I wouldn't. But when Jesus performs a miracle, he changes life forever. And his miracle is calling us. That's his miracle. He's created a miracle by bringing us here today. And finally, we come to that poor woman suffering from bleeding. Again, she went against the Jewish law. She touched Jesus' cloak and she was healed. And her act was a desperate act of faith and trust. She'd been called by God to lay down the law by which her life was governed because she was a Jew. And because she was having a constant menstrual flow, that rendered her ceremonially unclean. So she knew she shouldn't have been where she was. She was ostracized, again, like Matthew. There's a pattern here, isn't there? Jesus is choosing the unclean, if you like, or the unacceptable. And she touches the edge of his cloak, and she knows that she will be healed. And Jesus knows some of his power is gone. He turns around and he blesses her. And he says, go, you're healed. Your faith has made you well. I mean, I've said many times before that we are so unique and that God speaks to us individuals and calls us in individual ways and for different things. No, he doesn't call me to do things that I know I will not be very good at. He calls us with our talents and with the things that we are good at. And if he gives us something that we see as a bit, I'm not sure I can do that, trust, because if God's called you, you can do it, because he won't choose you to do something he knows you're not capable of doing. Because when we accept God in our lives, we're actually accepting change. Change from where we are now to where he wants us to be. And we have a choice. We either accept that change, we accept the calling, we live by trust, we live by faith. Because if you don't have faith, you have nothing. But faith is it's a skill. You start with a little bit, and then you trust God with a bit more, and so you get more faith, and you trust God a little bit more, and you get more faith. So in a way, it's practicing faith, isn't it? I will not be beaten by whatever problem is around me now. I will seek for help. I will speak to God about it. I will speak to my fellowship people about my problem. I will bring God into my life. Because when we accept God fully, and we accept people here to help us and support us, it's God with skin on. And God with skin on is very important. But it's his gift. It's his gift from us. Because when we accept the call, when we have trust and faith, we get peace and we get hope for the future. And we need hope for our future, don't we? And when times are tough, you practice. You get up in the morning, you think, well, God, here's another day. You know, keep me going today. And at the end of the day, you say, I've got through that. I have to do that in the morning when I've got Charlie, and he comes whistling down the drive, and I'm thinking, oh dear, it's going to be one of those days. God help me today, you know. But that's what life's like, isn't it? And we start the day by saying, God, look after me today. Look after me. And then when we come to the end of the day, we say thank you. And if you feel that God's spoken to you, do what I do and keep a little prayer diary and just write it down. And then you can pray into that at night and you can say, oh, God, you've done that. Or when you notice in the future that he's answered a prayer, you've got something to base your faith on, because the more you practice it, the stronger it is. I hope I haven't rambled on too much, but I feel passionate about trusting and having faith and loving God and letting him love us. And if anybody wants to respond to anything that I've said about sharing a problem or feeling worried or feeling lack of faith, Sue is around. I mean, do you want to do it now, Sue, or at the end of the service? Or okay. So, amen.